In our two previous discussions, we have about the Rambam, Hilchas Melachim, chapter 11 and chapter 12, where the Rebbe explains what the Rambam is out to establish. And he explained. The Rambam is here out to explain what is Moshiach, what is his task, and once we understand that, we realize why it is so fundamental believing in him and his coming, and contrary to that, it is reneging the entire Torah. The reason, as we have said, the Rebbe explains that Moshiach is not about miracles. Moshiach is not about bringing an easier, more comfortable life just for the sake of itself. Moshiach is all about perfecting the performance of mitzvahs and the study of Torah. This is impossible presently in time of Golus. It's only the time of Geula where we will have the capability of doing all the mitzvahs, meaning accomplishing the entire Torah. And for this, the Rambam brings a few proofs from the Torah. Number one, it's in the Torah, saying it is a biblical concept about Torah, about its mitzvahs. Further, he brings about the prophecy of Bilam. And as he explains, that part of the prophecy refers to the time of David, and the other part refers to the time of Moshiach. The reason he brings in David versus bringing Moshe Rabbeinu is because David, being the catalyst for the building of the Beis HaMikdash in his time, during the time of the temple, we were able to do the entire Torah, and therefore, he says, the second Moshiach, anointed one, will be able to once again re-establish, and even greater than in the time of David HaMelech. What means greater in the time than David HaMelech? That's why he brings in the concept of the cities of refuge. This was not done in the time of David HaMelech. So the Torah says there will be a time when you will be able to fulfill completely in the expanded borders, in the entire land of Eretz Yisrael, belonging to us, will have the three additional cities of refuge. So therefore the Rambam needs to bring in those three proofs from the Torah. And as he says, all that it says in the Nevi'im is all part of what Torah says. And therefore, if God forbid somebody does not anticipate it, somebody is not awaiting the coming of Moshiach, means what? That he's content with the Torah is presently. That's not what Torah is all about. Torah is to be able to be fulfilled completely. And therefore, doesn't need to do miracles. He'll do miracles. He does miracles. But that's not his main purpose and thrust. So really, we have over here three issues. Number one, the description of Moshiach himself. He's the descendant of King David. And he's a extremely pious, observant person, Jew, so to say, and the greatest of scholars that ever existed. That's Moshiach. The second thing is that he cannot content himself and just lead a life for his own personal spiritual benefit. He must lead. He must influence the entire community to follow the laws of Torah mitzvahs. And then comes the next step. He has to battle evil, who disturbs presently of Torah mitzvahs. His task is to make sure that evil should not be a disturbance to doing Torah mitzvahs. But then comes a further stage. He builds the Beis HaMikdash. He gathers in the entire Jewish people to the land of Israel, which then we will have the entire Torah. But it's still not enough. What comes then? He has to perfect the entire world. First, subdue them, and then perfect them, transform them. All of them, all the nations, should all speak the language of God. What means the language of God? Doesn't mean they're all going to speak Hebrew, but as Alma Posner once said, speak English, but think Jewish. think godly. The wording, the idea behind that language will all be godly reality and God's leadership and God's presence in this world. For this, the Rambam brings the verses and he explains those verses, how they were first by David and then how they're ultimately going back to Moshiach. We don't have the time to go into. Please study the Sikha for yourself. Go onto the website tutaltz, tutaltz.com. There you will have a number of different explanations, extensive explanations on this subject. But I just want to tell you, we are living this final moment right now. We are living the moment where the world is being transformed in the recognition that indeed God leads the world. So may we see Moshiach with us over here, all together in the Beis HaMikdash, in the perfected world with Torah perfection.